It's all right, he's there now, I can see him. Don't worry, he can't see me. So I suppose I shall just have to try and do my sum standing up here, eh? Me, Albert Pierrepoint, peeping through a window like some sort of thief in the night. This is supposed to be an exact science, is this, but what it comes down to every time is guesswork. I keep telling them there ought to be a proper official system, so I know exactly to the pound what I'm dealing with. My idea was that we should weigh 'em and measure 'em, including the neck. Very important, the neck. Do it all officially. Then I'd know what I was up to. They seem to think it might upset 'em. Well, I don't see why it should, I said. I mean, look at it this way. They want things to go smoothly on the day, same as I do. And if it were explained to them in those terms, they'd understand, they'd get the point. But as it is, I'm working with one hand tied behind my back. I shouldn't say this, only I'm a bit worried about this lad down here, the one that's going down tomorrow. It seems he's a bit simple, which means that things might not go according to plan. The sensible ones, they know that when I walk into that cell it's time and they've got to go. But when they're like him, well, it can be unpredictable. But hey, listen, why should I worry? I'll be finished with this lot soon. I'm leaving, I'm packing it in, I've handed in my notice. So it'll just be me and Anne and the pub and good night Vienna as far as the blooming Home Office is concerned. Well, now it lasts forever and that goes for hanging. But at least the public are going to be put straight about it all at last, because there's going to be a book. Just set things down as best you remember them, that's what they said. Don't you try to make a story out of it, that's not your job. Oh, I said, and whose job is it then if it isn't mine? They said, oh, we'll do that later. I said, oh, no you won't, I said. Over my dead body, I said. I'm not having some reporter putting in stuff that I've never said. I've had my fair share of that in my time, as you can well imagine. No, look, it's the way we do things. You just set down what you can remember, and then this writer chap comes along and does the writing based upon what you've written. He's called a ghostwriter. A ghostwriter, I said. What's a ghostwriter when he's at home? That's a funny way of putting it. Well, I suppose it is, Albert, seeing as it's you. Don't know what he's on about half the time, to be truthful. What they want, apparently, are the highlights, what they call the drama. The drama, I ask you, there is no drama to what I do. To be perfectly honest, I'm having second thoughts about the whole thing. I just don't feel up to it, not just at the moment, a little bit restless. I keep waking up in the nights now, which is not something I ever used to do. I used to sleep straight through, head down like a baby, and that was it, you know, but even the night before, not now. I went to see my doctor, see if there was something that he could give me, but he said it was just my age, but I don't know. Not in my case, I just wake up and lie there. The trouble is, you see, it's disturbing Anne. Anyway, something I'd like to get off my chest right at the outset is a feeling I've often had that what I do is somehow looked down upon. Not by the general public, I hasten to add. I've had naught but respect from you lot. I've even had respect, you might be surprised to learn, from the clients. No, what I mean by that is those colleagues who, like me, work within the judicial process. I've got the feeling that they looked upon themselves as being professional people, whereas me, well, I was like some sort of handyman brought in at the very last minute to tie up the loose ends, so to say. And what people who think like that should think on is, the Pierrepoints have been an integral part of the judicial process for generations, a professional family in the service of the state. Do you know what I found myself browsing through to the neat? My dad's execution book. Aye, that's right. My father's execution book. How many people know, I wonder, that for the first 50 or so years of the 20th century the name of Pierrepoint was never off the Home Office list? My father, Henry Albert Pierrepoint, his brother, my uncle, Thomas William Pierrepoint, and me, Albert Pierrepoint. Hey, I was 11 years of age when I first became aware of the family tradition. Some people keep a diary all their lives, or so I'm told, and my father was no exception in that he kept a record of all the commissions he'd carried out. Well, it was as I read through those accounts in his execution book that I believe that I also received the call, as you might term it. Hey, I'll never forget the time at Beaumont Street School in Huddersfield, which is where we lived at the time, and the teacher, Mr. Hardcastle, he set us an essay. what I should like to be when I leave school. Well, I copied the title down at the top of the page and then I just sat there flummoxed. Aye. All rest at class seemed set, heads bent down, scribbling away. So I also dipped my pen in the inkwell and began to write. When I leave school, I should like to be the official executioner. I sat there, looked at what I'd written, then I started to expand on the idea with a few details of the duties that I would have taken from my father's records, do you see? And then, funny thing happened. Mr. Hardcastle had been roaming round the class, checking to see what the boys were writing, when suddenly he stops behind me, and over my shoulder he reads what I'd written. Now, I'd always thought of him as being a very, very stern man. But when I looked up at him, he was sort of smiling. Didn't say a word, just patted me gently on the back and walked on. I often think back to that moment as though it was, and I hope this doesn't sound daft, as though it was my destiny calling. Now what this means is that when we come for this lad down here, the one in the exercise yard, the one that's walking round and round in that endless circle, when we come for him, he'll get the best possible service from me, and by that I mean less than a minute, from the moment I walk into his cell to the moment he goes down the hole. So there won't be time for any trouble. And skills like that you don't learn overnight. Do you realise that by the time of my retirement I will have been following this calling for 25 years, which they tell me is some kind of a record? I've travelled all over the world, teaching my methods to others. I've been entrusted to officiate at some of the most important capital events of recent years, including what I consider to be the high point of my career. Hamelin in Germany, just after the war. All those Nazis. All in all, well over 400 commissions in total. And in all that time, I can honestly say with my hand on my heart that I've never been the subject of an official complaint about my behaviour. Others have, in the past, believe you me, staggering about on the gallows, some of them, legless. But not me, not Albert Pierrepoint. I've had my differences with the Home Office, there's no denying that, my fair share of disputes, usually over money. But about my work, there has never been any complaint. And the reason for that is quite simple. It is because I've only ever wanted one thing. I've only ever had one aim. To be the calmest and the quickest that there has ever been. If they had to go, why shouldn't they go with dignity? I didn't have feelings. I wasn't paid to have feelings. I was paid to exercise my skills. I felt nothing. I want that to be clearly understood. I did my duty as quick as it could be done, and I felt nothing. You do not kill, Mr. Pierrepoint. You execute the judgment of the court. You are the instrument of justice.